Hi, I'm Thilo and I would like to constantly improve my English speaking skills, and for that, I just need to speak. That's why I record these podcasts or videocasts and always try to find a topic that I can talk about. I'm not a professional in English and I don't claim to deliver everything in correct grammar, intonation, and spelling. I just want to share my experiences on my way to learn English with you. Today is June 26 in 2022 and we are on episode 6 and I want to talk about the 12 English tenses. When I first started learning English, it was quite difficult for me to understand English language conversations or English language videos, especially at the beginning in 2019 when I was watching teaching videos about grammar, sentence structure and so on. I often had to pause the video to look up vocabulary. But the difficulties were not only due to the missing vocabulary, but also because the sentence structure in English is different than in German. That means there is a different word order than in German, and additional auxiliary verbs are often used. But what exactly is the difficulty, especially at the beginning of learning a foreign language? Well, that's because at the beginning you are thinking in your native language, in my case German, in your head, and trying to translate the German sentence into English, word for word as it is. This in the case when you want to speak English, and in the case when you hear English, you do it the other way around. That means you expect a special word at a special place in the sentence. And that's where the dilemma starts. Because in English there are different word orders, and sometimes, in contrast to German, there are additional auxiliary words, or sometimes, in contrast to German, words are omitted. And that confuses your translation rhythm. Not to mention that at the beginning you lack the English vocabulary, and so you often don't know the English equivalent in the German to the German word. Let's make an example. In German, ich spielte Fußball can become in English I played football, but also can become I was playing football, or I had played football, or I had been playing football, depending on the context. When a beginner learning English hears this, he wonders, what the hell is this was or had been doing there? It should just be, I played football. Or another thing, a simple example I had difficulties with for a long time, I have been there, as another form, the present perfect form of I was there. And also, I've been asked instead of I was asked. All these are examples of certain tenses or the use of the passive voice. I really had difficulties with that at the beginning, especially since there is often no direct German equivalent. This means that you have to learn English vocabulary, but also English sentence structure, especially the formation of sentences in the different tenses. Let's therefore talk about the 12 tenses. When we want to express whether something happens now or in the past or in the future, we use appropriate constructions for present, past or future. For the present, the here and now, we simply use the infinitive form of the verb. For example, I play football. Or attention, he plays football. For he, she, it, we add an S. For past, yesterday, last year, etc., we simply use the second form of the verb. For example, I played football. Here, there is no additional S for he, she, it. For the future, tomorrow, next year, etc., we also use the infinitive form of the verb and add the auxiliary verb will in front of it. For example, I will play football. Again, there is no S for he, she, it in the future case. And already we know the simple forms for forming statements in the present, past, and future. Present, I play football. Past, I played football. Future, I will play football. I now show you an overview of this, where S stands for subject and O stands for object. In our example, I is the subject and football is the object. By the way, in the overview, you can see another important rule of the English grammar, the sentence building formula subject, verb, object, or SVO for short. This is very important for the word order in English sentences. And here is the overview. To talk about action that happens in the past, you say, I played football for present. I play football, or he plays football. Or in the future, he will play football. At this point, let's briefly talk about the different verb forms. In English, there are 3 different verb forms. The base or infinitive form, the past simple form, second verb form, and the past participle form, the third verb form. Later on, we will come to a fourth verb form, the so-called ing form. Usually, the second and the third forms of a verb are formed by adding an ed. So, play becomes played, played. Plan becomes planned, planned. Or cry becomes cried, cried. These are so-called regular verbs where in the second and the third form only ed is added. Attention, sometimes also small things change, like in this case a second n is added, or y becomes ie. IE. Yes, I wasn't quite sure how to pronounce this. Okay. When we talk about regular verbs, you probably guessed it already. If there are regular verbs, there must be irregular verbs. And yes, there are. Unfortunately, there is no universal rule. You just have to learn them by heart. So when we, in the regular form, only add an ed in the second and the third form, in the case of irregular verbs, there are absolute different forms in each cases. So run becomes run, run. Break becomes break, broke, broken. Arise, arose, arisen. Go, went, gone. So you have just to learn them by heart. Okay, let's remember that we've already gotten to know the 3 simple forms of tense formation. Like we learned here. No? The simple form. Present, I play football. Past, I played football. And future, I will play football. This is what I'm talking about here. I play football. I played football. I will play football. This is the so-called simple forms of the tenses. But I said there are 12 tenses. What are the others now? Present, past, and future are the three tenses that show whether the action takes place in the here and now, in the past, or in the future. Aspects expresses how the action or state indicated by the verb takes place over time. In other words, aspects gives us extra information that tell us whether the action is ongoing, repeated, completed, or even habitual. In addition to the simple aspect that we have already got to know, there are three more. All in all, 4 aspects. These 4 aspects are used in all 3 tenses: past, present, future. Therefore, there are 12 tenses, and here you see the overview and you see the aspects. Tenses, past, present, future, and in all tenses there are the aspects simple, continuous, sometimes also called progressive, perfect, and perfect continuous. And so we have simple past, simple present, simple future. We have past continuous, present continuous, future continuous, and so on. And therefore, we have here 12 tenses, which can be used in English speaking and writing. Let's dive into the individual aspects and see what they express. The simple form only expresses the fact of an action or a situation. The fact or regular or repeated actions. No, I play football. Point. Only this. I play football. When we want to express that we in the middle of an action right now, then we use the so-called continuous form. When we want to express I am playing football right now, then we use this continuous form. Also in the past, I was playing football when he arrived, for example. Now we want to express we are in the middle of an action. Then we use the continuous form. The perfect, here we go. The perfect is a little tricky one, especially because of its use in the present. The perfect stands for a completed action in the past that has connection to another action or state. So for the past perfect, also called the past of the past, we speak of an action or state which happens before another action in the past. The other event is formed in this case as simple past. Example, he has cleaned. Sorry, that's not correct. He had cleaned his kitchen before he went to work. Also in the future, it refers to an action that will happen before another state or action occurs. For example, he will have cleaned his kitchen when he goes to work. The challenge now about past and future, the challenge is the present perfect tense. Because when you hear present tense, you think about an action or state that is happening right now. But we are talking about a past action which has an impact on the situation now. For example, you ask your friend right now, immediately in this situation, why is it so blinking here? And he says, I've cleaned the kitchen. In the present, there are 2 other essential uses of the present perfect. One is when talking about what you have or have not done in your life. For example, I have never eaten snake, or short, I've never eaten snake. Or I have been to Barcelona twice. And when talking about something that started in the past and continues today, for example, I've known him for 2 years, or I have worked in this company for a long time. So that's the perfect we spoke about. And now perfect continuous. The perfect continuous stands for a situation that started in the past and continues until today. We already had this case in the perfect. What is the difference? The difference is if you want to emphasize, especially the duration, the perfect continuous is more likely to be used. And the perfect continuous shows that the situation will certainly continue in the future. In the perfect, it's not 100% sure if the situation will continue tomorrow or next month or sometime in the future. And this is the different here. No? We in both cases, perfect and perfect continuous, we have unfinished situations that started in the past. And in the perfect, it may continue into the future. And in the perfect continuous, it started in the past and continue into the future. It will be sure that in this case I've been playing football for 5 years, and it's sure then I will play for further 5 years football maybe. Okay, this was the overview of the individual aspects for which I've given you the main meanings. There are still some nuances, especially in the individual tenses, and so it was only the main meanings that I've shown you. And as you already seen in the examples, each aspect in each tense has its own formation rule, as the following overview shows. Here is an overview how to build the different forms when you want to use it. For gravity, I have omitted in this case the object everywhere. You still need to add this in your head. Now you have subject, verb plus object here in this case, and here plus object plus object. This is what I omitted here. I think it's enough for today about the English tenses. I will continue to practice and strengthen my speaking. Be curious what the next topic will be. Thank you, your Thilo.